Cyberpunk 2077 features a nice range of Bowie-style knives for you to choose from, and whilst these things can't necessarily compete with the likes of katanas or other melee weapons when swinging at foes, all we need to do is buy the Dagger Dealer perk, and they take on a whole new purpose by becoming throwing knives. This video is going to explore how to acquire them, weigh up the pros and cons of each, before deciding once and for all which is best. If you've been enjoying this series so far, then do consider leaving a like on the video and subbing to the channel for more content like this. Thanks. Now let's get to it. As always, let me just briefly outline exactly how I structured my perks for this video, to help you understand exactly how I achieved some of the more overpowered effects. By balancing my attributes across reflexes, tech, and cool, I was able to improve my blade damage, craft the legendary tier knives with Edgerunner Artisan, and most importantly, achieve insane poison effects and excellent recovery time through the power of ninjutsu perks. In fact, this combination was so powerful that I was killing everybody from one hit with poison damage. This was a problem, obviously, in the fact that I wasn't able to notice some of the nice unique effects of various knives. So for a lot of the footage you'll see, I went back and tested without perks for a much less godly but more realistic result. Anyway, now that that's cleared up, onto the knives. Down at the bottom then, we have the Chef's Knife. Not a terrible weapon by any means, just not as good as the rest. Now, if you've ever accidentally cut your finger whilst cooking, you, my friend, have first-hand experience of just how deadly a Chef's Knife can be. Just be grateful you suffered a mere cooking incident though, and didn't have some lunatic start throwing things at you like I am here at the Arasaka Industrial Park. Imagine taking down one of the most heavily armed compounds in Night City with your favorite culinary tool. Which leads me on to exactly where you can buy the legendary tier for this one, because you won't be finding it at some melee vendor like usual, but rather down at this inconspicuous ramen shop near Jig Street, though I'm sure nobody would be crazy enough to pop out for some ramen and come home with a 50 grand Chef's Knife. Oh god damn it. You can also spend even more money if you want to and buy the epic crafting spec from the Jackson Plains weapon vendor as well. But honestly, why would you settle for anything less than the very expensive knife of a chef we've never met before in a place where people like fingers live? It also has an okay return time of 5.5 seconds after being thrown, but don't ask me how the physics of that works because I have no idea. Also, I hear it's pretty good at cutting onions, so I suppose it makes people cry in multiple ways. There's always a basic variant to these melee weapons, and it very often makes it the most boring piece of kit on offer. Knife, however, has a 4-second return time, that's faster than the Chef's Knife, as well as a faster attack speed than several of its peers. For me, it's 3.38 attacks per second, but I feel that varies according to different stats. Definitely faster though than the two culinary knives and the Tanto, which are rather heavy hitters that we'll get to next. You can buy a legendary version over here from Spectre Cheng in Japantown, but that's only if you're aiming to become a knife completionist or want a multi-throwing knife build, because there's a much better and cosmetically identical variant coming up later, as well as just a bunch more unique variants along the way. The Butcher's Cleaver sets itself apart from the other knives by not being throwable, and whilst that's annoying, it does make up for it by having the highest damage per swing by a long shot, though obviously its lack of throwability does lock it out of a ton of knife-based builds, including the main ones that I'm using. Perhaps then it belongs in a category with the other blade tools, which I still need to do a video on, but the game itself classes it as a knife, so here we are. It's also got a terrifyingly cool ability which makes it swing faster and consume less stamina on targets who are bleeding. The game literally describes this as the knife being bloodthirsty, and the thought of carrying around a sentient butcher knife is kinda cool, and would be a great centerpiece to some deranged Night City butcher build. It could even explain why throwing it isn't possible. The knife will not part from its master. You and it are one. That is, provided you don't miss it in the first place, because this is indeed an easy one to miss. During our first meeting with Placide in the quest Maptan Pelen, I hope I pronounced that right, he will use it to butcher a chicken. A pretty uncommon occurrence in 2077 as it happens, since meat is synthetically grown. And after he puts this bloodied knife down, we can actually pick it up. And this may or may not be a level dependent feature, but for me it was legendary. A great bonus for those who aren't leveled into tech. At legendary level then, we can apply 3 different mods from the get-go. And I'd recommend 3 kunais to compound that attack speed even more. You're absolutely going to be relying on that speed since, you know, you can't throw it at people. Do you remember Katana from a few videos ago? Well, I'm pleased to announce that Katana recently gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. Please meet Tanto, a cute little throwing knife which, if raised right, will no doubt grow up to become a worthy Japanese sword. So it's basically a little katana which can also be thrown. The drawback, of course, being that a smaller blade doesn't block nearly as well as the bigger version. Though that said, there's no real need to use blocking with blades in this game, as they can't really deflect bullets without mods, and we don't have a swordplay equivalent to beat on the brat. I mentioned in my katanas video how cool that would be, and I'll repeat the same sentiment here. Please add a beat on the brat sequel where we exclusively battle enemies with swords. The Phantom of Night City Cyber Psycho was a good start, but even there too, the need for well-timed blocks was minimal, and I'm holding out for the day we get a Cyberpunk style Battle of Geonosis even. Anyway, these baby katanas are pretty commonly sold by melee vendors across Night City, but to get the very best, you'll have to purchase the legendary crafting spec from the Animal's weapon vendor. Being the child of a katana, they definitely do some of the best damage per hit out of all the knives, but annoyingly take a whole 7 seconds to return when thrown. That's longer than most of the other throwing knives, so you'll want to slot this one in a multi-knife build probably, for any hope of survival during that 7 seconds. Added in 1.6, the Neurotoxin Knife is a fun little stabbing tool with a poisonous bite. One of my favourite things to do with this one is to hold it pointing outwards like this, walk up to enemies and give a tiny little stabby stab. It being a neurotoxin knife will likely yield further reaching consequences though than that one simple action, and you can watch on as the neurotoxins do their thing. And with a low cooldown of 4 seconds, you can also throw this one very often. It's not quite as powerful as its iconic counterpart, but it's most certainly quicker, a nice addition to any 3-slot throwing knife for a lingering damage effect. And with the insane poison perk loadout that you're partly seeing here, it merely compounds that poisoning effect even more than the other knives. Not that that's really necessary at such a power level. Anyway, the Jackson Plains weapon vendor can hook you up with an epic crafting spec, else the Animal's weapon vendor can provide you a highly expensive legendary tier knife. Not necessarily something you should fork out on, but it's for you to judge after seeing its iconic variant. With the lowest recovery time of the bunch, the Punknife is one of the best choices to go for if you're slotting multiple knives and constantly want one on hand. With 2 seconds to recover, that means stacking 3 of these allows you to throw 1 knife every 2/3 of a second. It doesn't have any specific unique effects, but it's still the best non-iconic for me simply on the prospect of how often we can use it. The Jackson Plains weapon vendor can hook you up with an epic crafting spec, creating a knife with 2.5 seconds of cooldown. But for the truly best one, you'll have to head to our longtime pal, Coach Fred, and fork out a ridiculous 50 grand. It's as though he wasn't earning enough off of us already from the beat on the brat commissions. Still, maybe the boomerang or teleportation technology which makes this thing return to us is just really expensive to manufacture. Well, it's more justified than the extortionate price they charge for a steel pipe in this game, at any rate. But yes, for the quickest cooldown, this is the knife you want. And hell, if you're spec'd so heavily into ninjutsu like I am, then one hit from all the knives is a death sentence to most opponents, and some of the special benefits of iconics are almost useless at that point, which could make this arguably the best in the game. However, due to this being both expensive and not as powerful early on, there is definitely better to come from a certain point of view. Now, it may not be top of the list, but Blue Fang is definitely the coolest looking knife in my opinion, and to me resembles a blue fang. Getting this one is reasonably easy. Just head over again to the weapon vendor in Jackson Plains and give the former boxing champion lady 27k for the rare version. It'll of course need upgrading to be top tier, so hopefully you have those tech and crafting skills at the ready. This one has a really unique ability which stuns enemies 1 second after landing a headshot on them, or 3 seconds after a hit anywhere else. Hitting an enemy outside of combat though will result in an immediate stun, making it great for stealth. Definitely one of the earlier knives to pick up if you're planning a knife-based build. And even later on, we can turn this into a stupidly overpowered poison fang that essentially marks people for death with a single hit. Much like the regular neurotoxin, we combine poison perks from ninjutsu as well as the knife's own ability for extra poison damage. 1 slash from this thing and we kickstart exponential poison damage. Again, I cannot understate how unfairly overpowered I feel doing this, and it ultimately results in the demise of anyone affected after a few seconds tops. The biggest drawback to this blade though is without a doubt the 10-second cooldown. Obviously a really impractical amount of time to wait during a fight. It's something that actually might make the regular neurotoxin the better option in some cases. Sure, you can mostly mitigate the problem by slotting another 2 knives, or you can get a bit more creative by unlocking the juggler perk from the ninjutsu tree. With that, you'll immediately regain all knives on cooldown with a kill or a crit hit. So depending on where you're at with your build, this knife will either be an extremely powerful stun device or just a straight up health drain. Hell, by the sounds of this clip, it's even powerful enough to take on Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Don't make yourself an easy target!
The iconic variant of the Punknife, Headhunter has qualities which make it both better and worse than its originator. With a 5-second recovery time up from 2 seconds, you obviously can't throw this one as often. However, the increased time here is all part of the knife's special ability. You see, the purpose of this one isn't really to be a one-hit kill, and thus it's useless with my overpowered poison knife build. But it was when I went back and used this without the poison perks that I discovered its true potential. By throwing this one at a target, it will attach to them for 5 seconds before returning to you, and in this time any further headshots landed on said target will deal an insane 250% bonus headshot damage. So whilst this thing isn't designed to be a one-hit kill, it absolutely, with decent aiming skills, is supposed to ensure a 2-hit kill. Slotting this one into a triple knife loadout then, and always using it first on an enemy, is a really great tactic. To ensure accurate follow-up attacks with other knives do bucket loads of extra damage. To acquire this one then, head to the West Wing Estate melee vendor and give them 27 grand, same as the blue Fang. Not a terrible price, but when we consider it's rare and needs upgrading, still quite a lot. Equally though, it's these top 3 which are my personal choices for a 3-knife loadout, with the next one being arguably even better. So here we finally are, at number 1, and funnily enough, it's cosmetically identical to the regular knife, but is so much better. Stinger is yet another item which we inherit from Scorpion, and why everybody feels a need to par off this deceased nomad stuff to us, I will never know. I mean, we literally met the guy once, and now the Aldecaldos think of all the people in the world, we are the most worthy to inherit his things. That said, this one is actually quite missable if you don't do the I'll Fly Away quest with Mitch, in what I see as a modern rendition of a Viking longboat funeral. We send the guy off a cliff in a flaming car. Awesome way to go, but why Mitch chooses V instead of literally any of the Aldecaldos is again quite interesting. Anyway, at the end of the quest, he'll talk about you crossing paths with Scorpion briefly before gifting us the Stinger. It's got a decent 4-second recovery time, same as the regular knife, but its unique power comes in the fact that it'll cause any poisoned enemies to bleed and any bleeding enemies to poison. When you're a lower level knife wielder then, and it takes several stabs to take out an enemy, you can create a compounding effect of bleed, poison, poison, bleed, and so on. And once you unlock the perk which makes all the knives apply poison, this one becomes stupidly powerful, because once we've got them poisoned, we've also got them bleeding. The only tiny issue is that to upgrade it to legendary, we will once again require Edgerunner Artisan, though at least we can get the base blade for free, and I must say, even at this level, even at rare level, the effect is still noticed and appreciated. As a knife wielder, from the moment you get this one, I see no reason why you trade it out for anything else. Bring in other knives as well, sure, but straight up getting rid of this one is something I will never do in a triple knife build once I have it. And it is for that reason that Stinger is, in my opinion, the best knife in Cyberpunk 2077. But let me know what you think. Perhaps you like to use the knives totally differently, or perhaps I missed some cool effects. Either way, let me know down in the comments your favorite knife in Cyberpunk 2077 and why. I'll be finishing up the melee weapons with the blade tools like machetes very soon. But for now though, thanks for watching. I'm Sam Bram, and I'll see you soon in another video.